Hello and welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie and I'm with my sister Joy. Although not in person, she's actually on the phone. We're trying something a little different tonight. So Joy, I guess you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, I can hear you loud and clear. Good deal. So for those who are wondering where we've been, it's been over a month since we've done a podcast, and the last time we did a podcast, it was Dracula, and that was our October, our Halloween episode. So we've just been busy, life in general. So, but we've got a really good book prepared, ready to discuss, and it's called Stories Behind the Great Traditions of Christmas. And I bought this book. Honestly, I've had this book a long time. I don't even remember when I bought it, but it's by Ace Collins, and the copyright is 2003. So anyway, the traditions, the stories behind the traditions of Christmas, and I love this little book. It is so interesting. So I asked Joy the other day. I said, "Hey, can you just read?" Okay, so the way the book is set up is it's got 26 chapters, and each chapter is a different Christmas tradition, and of course it goes into how that tradition came about and gives you all kinds of information about it. And I asked Joy, I said, "Hey, would you just read a few of the traditions?" Because I know she didn't really have time to read the whole thing, and then we can discuss it on our podcast. But come to find out, the introduction was so interesting, we decided to do a podcast just on the introduction.
Yeah, and let me ask you this before I say this. Have you read the whole book?
Yeah, but it's been a long time ago.
Okay. So unfortunately, I had the book for several days, but I've just been so busy. But I did read the introduction, and there was so much packed into the introduction, so much I didn't know. And it was, like Angie said, it was very fascinating. And so, like she said, we just decided we'll just do a podcast just over the introduction. And so much of it, I was like, how did I not know this? Why have I never thought of this?
Me too. And the introduction is basically, this is how it starts. It says, "Before you wish for an old-fashioned Christmas." And they're talking about how today people lament, "Oh, I just wish it was more like the good old days, like that, wish Christmas," I'm sure Christmas probably used to be a lot simpler and people focused more on the meaning of Christmas. Well, according to this book, that is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. So basically, let me just read this sentence. This will explain it. It says, "Only in relatively recent times, the past 200 years, has Christmas even been celebrated by most Christians. Up until the 1800s, the day recognized as Christ's birthday was largely a pagan celebration." So did that surprise you, Joy?
Yeah, it really did. I mean, I know, I never thought about it. This is where, you're like, how in the world did I get to this age and never think about it? But what I told Angie earlier, it's just kind of like the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War, England was defeated, and then you think, okay, boom, we had our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, and we were a country and lived happily ever after, right? I never, until we read, that book about Hamilton.
Yeah.
I never knew how complicated and how much struggle and how much sacrifice and how much time it took to become a nation. Well, that analogy is what I'm using kind of with this introduction. I never contemplated, okay, Jesus was born. Okay, well, I never thought about, well, how long did it take to have a day to remember him? How long, how many years did it take to get these traditions? Where do these traditions come from? I just kind of think, oh, Jesus was born. Well, from that point forward, we always remember his birthday and celebrate his birthday. All Christians do from that day forward, but that could not be farther from the truth, like you just said.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of struggle and a lot of stories, and we're talking centuries past before what we have today, a reverent day to remember the birth of Christ.
And so this introduction, it literally goes into, it starts from basically just the time of Christ, basically, and it just goes through the centuries talking about basically how Christmas became known today, how we had the Christmas we have today, how it came to be, and it's really fascinating, very fascinating. This says for centuries, Christmas was anything but a holy day. It was most often a sinful parade of excess, a day set aside for ignoring laws and terrorizing citizens, and those who did attend church did so in wild costumes. And the messages of many priests were anything but scriptural, and gambling was common during the services. That blew my mind.
I know.
Yeah.
The part that really blew my mind was, the Christians that left England on the Mayflower, the Puritans came over.
You don't care, and we'll talk about it just a little bit later. I'm kind of going in order of what happened.
Okay.
But yes, that part was probably the most interesting part to me. So basically,
on Christmas, yeah, that's what I was going to say. That, I mean, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay.
Yeah, in just a second we will. So, but what the beginning though talks about, it was really like that's kind of like a Mardi Gras. It was just these drunken celebrations, and it always revolved around like the winter solstice. Whenever the Romans and Greeks, they would mark the winter solstice, and it would be just a week long of self-indulgence, basically.
Right.
So, and this was interesting, Joy. Do you remember the part they said it took over 300 years for the church to decide on a day in which to even honor Christ?
Yeah. And I always knew that there was no way we could know the exact day.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, this shows my ignorance. I just thought, okay, well, the astrologers, the scientists of today are able to follow the patterns of the planets and stars backwards. And remember, we talked about the Time magazine article where they think it was actually 2 or 3 planets aligned to make it look like a huge star.
Oh, yeah, the Star of Bethlehem, yes.
Yes. Well, according to that article, that's where they could kind of get the date of when he was born, the general date, because they knew when those planets aligned to make it look like that massive Star of Bethlehem.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah.
According to this introduction, they said, well, and this is logical, that it had to be at the time of the census. And they said usually the census in that area was taken in the spring or the fall, not in.
Yeah, they said more than likely it was taken sometime during the spring. But they said most likely it was not in the wintertime that he was born.
They said they're absolutely sure. There's a huge, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of certainty that it probably was not in the winter.
And one thing they brought out in the book is they said probably because of all this, the way people were treating the holiday and using it kind of as a time to basically just to sin. They said they think that this author thinks that the early church leaders wanted a day to counteract those celebrations. Right. And so they picked the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, which was December 22nd. And they think that, that at that time, that's why they picked December.
Yeah, I think they were just desperate to stop the madness and associate Christmas with Christ's birth and not just a free-for-all, like you said, you used to go out and party and sin,
Yeah. And let's see. The other thing, there's a lot more in here that I'm kind of just skimming through, but let's see. Let's talk about whenever the Pilgrims came over, and they were talking about how the Puritans were like what did they say about them? They were like the most, the strictest sect, I guess you could say.
Yeah, one of the strictest religious sects, and when it said that they wanted to outlaw Christmas, that was shocking to me. But then when I found out why, because it was just a day of debauchery, I understood. Like they said they would arrest. They made sure businesses were open. They would even arrest people that made against the law to celebrate Christmas. They would arrest people who were doing so. And it sounds so backwards, but it had to be done because they were trying to disassociate Christmas with, just recklessness. And like you said.
Did you see that part? The song, during those times, what you're just discussing, it was real common for the lower class people to go to wealthy homes and knock on the door and demand food or liquor or whatever. And
Yeah.
they didn't open the door and give it to them. They said they would just go take it. And they
yeah,
said,
like literally it was like lawlessness. It was just mobs. Wow, they said the police couldn't even control them, especially in England, and that they just gave up and said, okay, basically do it.
The police basically just kind of ignored it and thought, well, there's nothing we can do. It was kind of like
it was out of their control.
Like you get your one day of lawlessness. Yeah. So the song, "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," because that's a very, very old song, and they used to sing that in the streets. Okay. And they alluded to the line that says, "We won't go until we get some."
Yeah, bring us some figgy pudding or hasty pudding or whatever. We won't go until we get some. Wow, that has a whole new meaning to me now.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why. And hey, that's a good segue. When I bought this book, I bought another book. It's like a sister book to it, and it's called it's all about the traditions of the Christmas carols and the stories behind the Christmas carols.
Right.
And so I hope we get to discuss that someday. But so anyway, that part it says when the Puritans came to over here, they did outlaw Christmas in the New World. And then it said, this was funny, Joy, it said, but even though it was outlawed, boatloads of immigrants soon overpowered the wishes of the Puritans.
Right.
And anti-Christmas laws, it says they may have remained on the books, but they were soon ignored. And in most American cities, the lords of disorder took over the streets on December 25th. The drunken parties and gang riots grew so bad that in 1828, the New York City Council met in special session to discuss the issue. And it was just really bad. They even had to have special meetings about what to do to protect people's property. And,
all of that is new to me. I had never heard any of that or read any of that.
Okay, so then, now this next part was interesting to me. So you got your Puritans trying to, they wanted people to act like it was just another day, like don't even recognize it, because they were trying to just keep it from turning into what it used to be. But they said what really changed everything was when Queen Victoria married her cousin Albert. Okay.
Right. It was German.
Yes. So Albert was German. Well, in Germany, they actually revered Christmas. Okay.
Right.
They did a lot of really neat special traditions that we still carry on today. Well, he brought those traditions over to England, right?
Yes.
And it says, I'll just read this one part. It says, Albert brought with him the reverent and family-oriented German traditions of the season, which turned Christmas celebrations in Windsor Castle into a family affair. And soon British families picked up on the way the royals, hey, nothing's changed, has it?
No.
Watching the royals to see what they do. The British families picked up on the way the royals were spending their Christmas and adopted the new traditions. And for the first time, peace on earth seemed like it had a chance on December 25th in the British Isles.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting part of the introduction, that we really have Queen Victoria and Prince Albert
to thank for that.
Yeah, but they're a big reason that Christmas finally got the, respect it deserved and turned it more into a day of reverence. And I didn't know that about the Germans. I didn't know that they were kind of the ones at that time who were actually being reverent and not, doing it the way it should be done,
Yeah, I think several times in here he mentions America and England were the worst about, but anyway, then, and so it said that was a very important factor. But then, and I didn't know this, but they said the other two important factors, it was like all these things kind of combined to kind of turn Christmas into one day.
It's not just one thing. It's a
combination. It wasn't just one thing. But in 1822, that's when Clement Clarke Moore wrote a poem. And it was called, he actually called it A Visit from St. Nicholas, but it's now known as The Night Before Christmas. Well, he wrote that poem for his family, but then he submitted it to the newspaper, and it was printed the next year in the New York Sentinel. And they said it just became fantastically famous, right? I mean, and very famous. And they said
It's funny you say that because in our in my Spanish classes, we're doing Christmas units.
mm-hmm.
And one of the things in their study guide is The Night Before Christmas, but it's like a Spanish version. So
okay.
what year is that written again?
I'm sorry, what?
What year did he write that, did you say?
Like 1822.
So here we are,
mm-hmm.
2021, from
mm-hmm.
1822.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, would it be if he would have had a clue how popular that poem was. Books have been written about it. I mean, maybe not. Books have that poem in it, and they're illustrated. And like I said, I have a Spanish version that we're actually going to look at this week in my classes. That's just so cool that poem has been around so long.
Well, and it just occurred to me just now. I've been decorating for Christmas all day, and I have the book. Every year I pull that book out. It's the poem, and it's an illustrated book with the poem in it, and it's on my fireplace right now. The Night Before Christmas.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I just had a great idea for Twin Talk. You should record yourself reading the English version, and I'll record myself reading the Spanish version. We'll upload them one day in December.
Cool. Okay. But
fun.
That would be fun. But he points out that it says for the first time, children were seen as an important part of Christmas, and the door was open for a holiday to be reshaped into one that children of all ages could view as their own. And have you ever thought about that? About Christmas really is a holiday for children?
No, I never thought about it. I never thought about how everything's geared towards the children. And then, of course, this was new to me, too. That's why we're doing this introduction. There were so many interesting tidbits in there. And, that poem, according to this book, is one of the catalysts that got people to shift their attitude and think of Christmas as a children's holiday.
Right. Yeah, and then so the other thing, you know, earlier I mentioned there was 2 or 3, combinations of things. Well, the other one was in 1843 when Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol. Okay.
Right.
Ever think that his book A Christmas Carol had really had that much effect on Christmas?
No, never.
And they said that.
Sorry, I keep bringing up my Spanish classes, but guess what we're reading in my Spanish for tomorrow? We're reading a Spanish version of A Christmas Carol. It's a real shortened version, and it's so funny. I found it on a website, but they named it Mr. Scrooge. And it's a short story. It's about 3 pages long, 2 to 3 pages long. And what they've done is they've shortened the story down into like 2 or 3 pages into a short story, but it's in Spanish. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's so, once again, what year was A Christmas Carol written?
1843.
1843, and here I am tomorrow in my Spanish 4 class. We're going to be reading the story in Spanish. I mean, I just love how these stories and poems and songs have lasted for so many years. I just think that's so cool that they've stood the test of time.
They're deeply, deeply rooted in our culture. And
I had never thought about A Christmas Carol. Well, I'll go ahead and let you talk, but I had never thought about that book influenced Christmas.
Yes. Well, and they said that at the time that it was written in 1843, that was right in the heart of the Industrial Revolution, right, when everybody was, well, this part's so interesting. Do you care if I just read this?
Yeah, go ahead and read it. It is good.
It's very good. So it says, at the heart of Dickens' story were charity, hope, love, and family. The book was written at a time when the industrial age had created a culture in which money and hard labor seemed to rule every facet of society. Holidays had been all but eliminated. Men worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Children were often put to work in factories at the age of 8 or 9. No one had time to stop for even a moment to examine the wonder of life, much less reflect on the birth of the Savior. With Scrooge representing the common thinking of almost all industrialists of the time in both England and the United States, A Christmas Carol made people take a second look at their values.
Yeah. Never thought about it.
Yeah,
and, I just think that's so cool, and we need to take a look at it again today.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's funny how the United States even is different, because last year I had a guest speaker in our classes. One of my students, her parents are from Mexico.
Okay.
And we studied Christmas in Mexico. and she came in and she spent a whole hour just talking to us about Christmas traditions in Mexico. But the biggest takeaway I got from her and just from studying about it all these years, now I'm just talking about Mexico now, maybe not other Latin America, but I think it pertains to most Latin American countries. Our focus, and I know I'm generalizing here, and this isn't everybody, but I feel like many people in the United States, the focus is the presents. And, family and presents and material stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people are fed up with Christmas being materialized, but anyway, the big takeaway from her was faith and family are the focus in most Latin American countries. Okay, right. Mm-hmm. Faith and family. She said the kids, they might get she said they might get, especially in the poorer regions where she was from, she said they'd be lucky if they got one or two little toys. And she said small. She said, I'm not talking like big doll houses or whatever. She said, I'm talking like a little whistle or like a small little doll. Mm-hmm. She said 1 or 2 presents per kid was like a big deal. Yeah. And I thought, wow, just think of the mounds and mounds of presents that our kids open at Christmas.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like I lament the fact that it is so commercialized. Like it truly grieves me. But at the same time, I feel pressure to buy my kids lots of things because I don't want them to feel left out. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Or feel like, I didn't get anything I loved or whatever.
Right. And your kids, they come to expect it, and then you almost feel like, if I don't get them stuff, I don't love them, which that's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
There definitely is a pressure that our society,
because your kids go, well, what did you get for Christmas? What did you get?
Right. They're going to go back to school, and their friends are naming off 20 things they got. Mhm. And then you don't want your kid going, oh, well, I got, a shirt and some shoes or whatever, I know. I know, and it's. I'm trying to do better, and I'm constantly talking to my kids about, what the focus should be. But even as adults, I guess my point is, even as adults, sometimes I find myself doing the same. I feel like a hypocrite. I'm doing the same things that I'm criticizing others for doing, Yeah. But, well, my husband was watching Christmas with the Cranks earlier.
Okay.
I've only seen parts of it, but I don't know if you've ever seen it with Tim Allen, but and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
But they just say, "Hey, we're going to forget Christmas. Mm-hmm. We're going to go on a cruise. Like, forget the stress, forget the decorations, forget the cooking, forget the family. We're just have a stress-free and go on a cruise."
I do remember.
You know what? Mm-hmm. That's a great. That's what my husband and I were saying. We should do that one year. But the difference would be you would still focus
on your phone around or not, but it's cutting out a lot.
Oh, okay. Can you hear it now? Okay.
Yeah, but it's been cutting out a lot. So. Okay.
Ooh, okay. Well, my point is, I think that's a great idea. I think maybe 1 year just to get away. But the difference would be while you're away to focus on Christ's birth and reading scripture and really meditating on what the day's about. I'm not saying go off and have a cruise, but I'm just saying I think it might be good to just 1 year, no decorations, no presents, no, just really focus on the meaning of the day, if that makes sense.
Yes, because I've caught myself on many Christmases at the end of the day, I'm tired, we've been with family all day, the house was a mess, and I'll think, wow, I haven't even thought about Jesus one time today, or his birth, or, what I'm saying?
Right.
One thing I like to do is I have the movie The Nativity. I just think it's a really good movie, and I try to watch it every year, and it really kind of helps me put things back in perspective,
I tell you, this weekend, we watched The Star, and I think you may be the one that told us about it, the cartoon.
Yes, that's a very good, and I don't remember, was it with the camels and their...
Yes, there's a little burro named Bo.
Yes. That is a great movie.
Yes, I was going to plug that movie so big because I think you're the one that told us about it, and we watched it, and then we just watched it again this weekend. And if anyone's out there listening and you've never seen this movie called The Star, I think that's what it's called, the little donkey. And Oh my gosh, even though it's a cartoon, it was powerful.
Yeah, I remember watching it and thinking, I cannot believe how moved I am by this movie that's a cartoon. I was so moved by it.
It was very powerful and moving.
Yes.
And it was just so cool, the perspective and the things that could have happened with
funny.
Mary and Joseph.
I remember it, like the details of it. I do remember being moved by it. So where did you guys find it?
So it's on Netflix right now, I think.
Oh, it is. Good.
I'm pretty sure. And I told Olivia and Jeff, because Jeff fell asleep during it. He was so tired. But I told Olivia, I'm sorry, what?
I said, well, don't say someone fell asleep during it.
Oh, I know. Well, he's just tired. But I told Olivia, I said, this is one of the best Christmas movies I've ever seen. And I said, it's going to be a tradition. I said, we watched it last year and this year. I said, I think we should make this a family tradition that we watch this movie every single year. And she was all excited. Oh, yeah, because she loved it too.
So what's funny is I don't really remember a lot about it, but I do remember they looked at it from some perspectives that made me think, oh, cool, that's really cool to look at something that way. Or
yes, it's a little donkey was in captivity, and he was like a grain, like he had to go round and round the grindstone or whatever it's called to make the.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then he escapes, and he ends up being the donkey that Mary rides into Bethlehem on.
Yes.
And he wanted to ride with the royal caravan and be someone important and do something great. But then when he had the chance, he turned around and went back. It's like, no, I can't. Mary's been good to me. She's been nice to me. I'm going to be faithful to her. And little did he know he was going to be part of a royal story.
Oh, okay. I remember now.
Yeah. And, of course, there's some action. There's some mean dogs and a mean guy. Because Herod sends out people to kill them, get rid of them. He hears the three wise men come, and their camels are real funny, and they all have different personalities.
That's right. Yeah.
And
perspective of the animals that.
Yes, it's very the three camels have their own story with the Magi, and then Herod sends out this big brute to kill baby Jesus when he's born. He's got these two mean dogs, and there's just a lot of animals involved.
Okay, I remember now. Okay, so we definitely recommend The Star, and as well as Stories Behind Traditions of Christmas by Ace Collins. So we will, and Joy and I discussed this before the podcast, but we are going to go ahead and pick a few of the traditions within the book and just do a couple more podcasts during December. Who knows how many we'll do? We'll just have to wait and see. But if you're interested in this, and you want to hear some of the stories behind the traditions of Christmas, how these traditions came to be, and some discussions, kind of like what we did tonight, stay tuned, and we'll be bringing some of those for you in the near future. So, Joy, got anything else?
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to read about some of these traditions and stories behind stuff that we just take for granted and do every year and don't even question it. So I'm excited, and I hope we get a few in before Christmas is here. Yeah,
I agree. Okay, all right. Well, it's good to be back. I really miss doing these podcasts, and we will see you next time on Twin Talk.